I had planned on only watching 2 episodes of Markiplier's new show Edge of Sleep tonight before going to bed, because I just finished streaming Dark Souls at 3 a.m. and I thought it'd be nice to unwind with 2 episodes because they're pretty short. They're only about 20 minutes each. However, like Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until Markiplier puts them in a titty twister with a good show. Like a largemouth bass in a Florida lake, I was hooked. So I ended up watching all 6 episodes. I binged the entire thing. I smoked the whole pack. Every last doink that Edge of Sleep had to offer. And I just thought I'd give you my opinion on it. Now, when it comes to YouTuber-led projects, most people wipe their ass with like the normal scale of things. You start bringing it down a couple of notches because so many people are used to lackluster YouTuber shit. And very rarely are there things that break the mold. One that comes to mind always is Raka Raka's Talk to Me. That was a spectacular horror movie. Not just for YouTubers, but just in general, on its own 2 legs, by its own merit. And I have similar feelings for Markiplier's Edge of Sleep, where it's not just good for a YouTuber, it's good in general, but it's just good. It's not an amazing masterpiece or anything like I kind of felt for Talk to Me. And I know it's not exactly fair to keep like comparing these 2 things. This is a lower budget series here, and I do think they made the most out of the budget they were allocated for Edge of Sleep. I personally really enjoyed it, but I do think people that aren't already fans of Markiplier, or maybe they're unfamiliar with who that is, maybe they think it's like a fucking Pokemon or something, I do think when they tune into the show, they won't be as forgiving of the problems as a lot of people currently are. If you look up reviews for this show, it has thousands upon thousands of 10-star reviews from fans of Markiplier looking to show support. I get it, that's not surprising or anything, but I think it's important to talk about some of the flaws for things that can be improved going forward. I'm a fan of Markiplier, but I'm not here to play softball, I'm here to talk about the show overall, which is one that I was really entertained by, but there is definitely some things that didn't work super well and there's room for improvement. And I honestly do think people that don't know who Markiplier is can watch this show and really like it. I don't think this is a show that's entirely just sold on Markiplier's presence in it. I do think it has legs to stand on. It's just not like the best show ever made or anything, which isn't that big of a deal. One of the things I think contributes to that, though, is that there's only 6 episodes and they're 20 minutes each. That's not a lot of wiggle room to tell the story you want to tell. So it does at times feel pretty rushed. And as I understand it, this show is based off of a podcast. And a lot of people were pointing out that the show omitted a ton of things that were present in the podcast that helped tell the story and like make it more cohesive and hit harder. And that does seem like a shame because there are moments in here where it felt a little disjointed and a bit choppy, and I think it is just because of the runtime only being 20 minutes per episode and only 6 episodes. There's a lot to get through and not a whole lot of time to do it. The concept of the show is something has happened where when people go to sleep, they don't wake up. They die in their sleep. And we follow a team of 4 who happen to just be awake when all of this unfolded. We have Markiplier, who plays Dave, who has a very weird relationship with sleep, where he has these nightmares. Every time he sleeps, he has nightmares, and they're really trippy. And the visuals are really good in his nightmares, with these fucking whales flying overhead, like this cult that's in his head, an elephant monster, which I actually think they did a great job on the creature design for the elephant monster half of the time. So in episode 2, when we're introduced to the elephant monster, it like breaks out of his mother's skull during one of his dreams, and it looked great. It kind of was reminiscent of how they did it in Smile at the end of the first movie. I got very strong vibes of that. I thought they crushed it there, but I do think towards the end of the show, they really lost that like creepiness of the elephant monster because they keep showing it to you in broad daylight, and it just kind of looks like a person wearing a mask now. I liked what they did with like scarcely showing you the elephant monster in really tense scenes, as opposed to just having the elephant monster like T-posing on top of a hill. That takes away a lot of like the scariness and the threats of the monster. So half the time I thought the elephant monster was amazing, and the other half I thought was a little silly. We also follow Mateo, who is Dave's friend. They work together at the night shift, And then we also follow Katie, who is Dave's ex. And then there's Linda, who is a hospital worker that was working, and all this shit started going down. It was real fishy, and now she's been investigating it, trying to get to the bottom of what's causing it. And all four of them were awake during this, so they are the last four people on Earth, it seems. And they're trying to figure out what's happening. Why are people just dying when they go to sleep, and what can they do about it? Because obviously it's a race against the clock. They are going to go to sleep at some point. A human being can only stay awake for so long. So it's a really tense concept, and it's actually one that is kind of special to me on a personal level. When I was a child, I watched The Simpsons House of Horrors. I can't remember which one it was, but they had the one where it was like a spin on Freddy Krueger, where people were getting killed in their dreams. That terrified me to like my very core. Like my soul had hair standing up. Like it was so unnerving to me, that idea. And I had never seen anything really explore it outside of The Simpsons House of Horrors until this. So when I saw, and I went into this knowing nothing about Edge of Sleep, by the way, I just knew Markiplier was kind of spearheading it. So when I saw what they were doing with it, I was super happy to see it explored, and I thought they did a great job with it. They introduced so many interesting elements with Dave's dreams and what he sees and how it could tie into like what's happening. And personally, I really like the presentation. I love the surreal nature of the dreams that we experience. I love the chaotic editing during some of these sequences as well. I think it sells like just how disorienting it is. I do think there's moments though where they got a little trigger happy playing that song and dance, using that effect where it's cutting a lot and jumping around, and it might get a bit confusing for people. And I do think it was a little overused at the very end, where there was probably like 5 or 6 minutes straight of them just cutting around to people grabbing their skulls going, ah, yeah, ah. Like I think that was a little much, but I overall think that given the budget, they do a great job of presenting you with some good shit. And I do like the characters. Since we have a cast of 4 characters here that are all in peril, it's important that you buy into them and root for them. And I was, for the most part. As I said, it does feel a bit rushed, so some of the characters aren't as fleshed out as I think they probably were in the podcast that it's based on. But as a stupid Neanderthal who doesn't know the source material here, I still thought the characters had enough given about them for you to care. I know one of the big talking points of this series is going to be on Mark's acting, and really the acting and performances overall from the entire cast. Overall, I think the performances are fine. I don't think Markiplier is winning an Emmy anytime soon, but I do think he does a good enough job in the lead role here. I think as the series progressed, he got more and more comfortable with his character because he was definitely stronger in the last few episodes than he was in the first half. Early on, he felt a bit stiff. They needed the WD-40 and make him a little more loosey-goosey, grease the gears a bit, you know what I mean? He just felt like he was reading lines as opposed to performing them early on. But he starts to find his footing in the second half, really. And that's not to say that he was bad in the beginning by any means at all. And it's important to remember, not everyone can be the District 8 hospital helper from the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, where you're just born with the unbelievable acting prowess. Sometimes it takes a little while to assimilate into the character, and he does by the end. And it's not even bad in the beginning or anything. I thought overall Mark did a good job. I really feel like everyone did. I think one of the reasons why it might feel a bit flat with some of the characters isn't even really the performance of them, but more so some of the lines. I think some of the writing is a bit, wonky from time to time, and I think that might contribute there. I don't think the writing's bad or anything. There are just some moments where it feels kind of weak. And again, I think it's probably because it was a bit rushed. At least that's the perception I have. It really is a tall order to condense a big story and a big concept into 20-minute chunks. Really, the runtime is my only major complaint, and I guess this is maybe a personal preference, but I am just so fucking tired of shows being bite-sized morsels of content. 6 20-minute episodes is a mini-series, not so much a television season. And that's becoming more and more common. I wish it was longer. I wish they gave Mark and the team more room to breathe, to flesh it out more. Because I feel like it has the meat, like it has the ingredients. I just think it needed more time in the oven and more time allocated to the project in general. I would like if these were 40-minute episodes. I think it would really benefit from that, so they could explore it a bit deeper, so they could connect things a bit better. I think really a lot of the hangups that stop it from being an amazing show can kind of be attributed to how much time each episode had to get everything out there. Which is a bit of a shame, but I was really impressed by it. I am a fan of Markiplier, obviously, but even if I didn't know who it was and I just put this on, I wouldn't be disappointed or let down or anything. I would be highly entertained all the same. Again, I had planned on only watching 2 episodes tonight, but I was just sold on it and wanted to finish it, so I binged all 6. It is just a show that I personally really enjoyed. It just does have some things that prevent it from being this amazing breakout series that I do think it could be down the line. And I think this is a very optimistic look at what Markiplier and the team are capable of doing. Now, there is just 2 scenes I want to mention real quick. And this isn't important at all. These aren't even complaints. I just have to talk about this briefly. The movie begins with Dave and Mateo, and they're working. And Mateo's talking about how they need to go to a party that's happening right now, and Dave's a little apprehensive about it. But they ultimately decide they're going to go to that party. They go to the party at 3 a.m. It was 3 a.m. when they were deciding they need to go to a party. Who the fuck shows up to a shindig, a hootenanny, at 3 a.m.? That will be dead. There is no party left. Which ultimately was the point narratively. They go there, the party's over, people are asleep. Oh, now they recognize that they are dead because of that. Like, I get it, but why the fuck would Dave and Mateo even think that there was a party happening still at 3 a.m.? Because, like, they're hyping each other up. He's like, we're going to get you laid, Dave. We are going to get you some pussy, Dave. He's like, oh, I don't know, man. I'm not trying to turn up too hard. And he's like, no, we're going to go fucking hog wild in there. And it's like, brother, it's 3 a.m. No, you're not. That's not happening. Definitely not important at all. But I just had to mention it because it had me giggling a little bit about like this idea of getting excited to go to a party at 3 a.m. And then the other scene I want to mention is another one early on where they have recognized what's happening. Everyone is dying when they go to sleep. And what they do is they start going to a bunch of random people's houses just to confirm the theory that, oh, they're dead. Like everyone's shed the mortal coil here. And then when they're about to leave this neighborhood, Dave's trying to call Katie because he's trying to tell her, don't go to sleep. He's trying to warn her. He gets a hold of her. She says that she's going about to go to bed and she's cutting him off. She hangs up. And unfortunately, the car they were traveling in has broken down now. And they're 3 or 4 miles away from Katie's. And Dave decides he's going to run there because he needs to get there ASAP. It's a 3 or 4 mile run. Why wouldn't he just go into one of the houses, which they have already gone into to confirm people are dead there, and grab the keys to any of the hundreds of cars that were on the street next to them? He would have got there in a fraction of the time. Obviously, not a big deal. Doesn't change anything, but it was something I was watching where I was like, why not just grab one of those cars that are just openly accessible here. These 2 scenes are not a big deal, but I just wanted to mention them briefly just because I just thought it was something fun to talk about for a moment or 2. As I said, I really enjoyed the show. I recognize it's got flaws, and I really do think that this is a great step forward for Mark, and I think there is so much potential there. I do think his acting got better towards the end, so I think if he can just consistently stay there, he's got a bright future as an actor. And I'm very excited for whatever other projects he cooks up. I know he's got Iron Lung around the corner too, so I'm pretty pumped. I think the show is definitely worth watching. Even if you're not a fan of Markiplier, I do think it's just a really entertaining show. So I recommend it, and yeah, that's really about it. See ya.